I spent a few $100s taking my parents out for a nice dinner. But when the check came, the server handed me a bill for about $8,300. A gentleman had put his son's $8,000 college celebration dinner on your tab. He also left a note. It says your uncle already authorized it. I stared at that note, riddled with holes, and dialed 911 on the spot. Hello, I'm being scammed at a restaurant. The amount is about $8,000. My voice was not loud. But inside this restaurant, where quiet, elegance was the whole selling point, it landed as clear as thunder. That final line, the amount is about $8,000, made every diner around us freeze with their forks halfway up. My parents were still stunned and bewildered. Ethan, could this be some mistake? Hang up first. Let's ask and get this straight. That's right. Calling the police. Is it really that serious? What if some distant relative got drunk and thought it was a joke? I did not hang up. I gave the dispatcher the restaurant's address. Yes, I'm here, right now. I'm ready to cooperate with the investigation. After I ended the call, the entire lobby sank into a strange silence. Less than a minute later, a beer-bellied, middle-aged man in a crisp suit hurried out. Sir, let's talk this through. Why involve the police? It may just be a misunderstanding. The note says he's your uncle, doesn't it? Maybe he was just playing a joke on you, trying to give you a surprise. He said it so casually, as if an $8,000 bill was just a harmless prank. But my parents were taken in by his excuses and intimidated by his managerial air. Yes, Manager Clark is right. Let's ask around first. Maybe it really is some unreliable relative. Since when do we have anyone named Frank in our family? In that instant, a nameless anger flared in my chest. My parents, because of their kindness, looked so powerless in a scene like this. This was exactly what scammers and shady businesses love to see. I took a deep breath. Manager Clark. First, I'll say this again. I and my family do not have a single relative who could be called Uncle Frank. A charge as high as about $8,000, without the account holder's own signature, without phone verification, and without any form of pre-authorization. Your restaurant relied on one note from nowhere, and dared put it straight on my tab. Tell me, is that how you treat customers here? We saw that gentleman with your family, chatting like old friends, and he swore up and down that you had authorized it. That is why we, ... I cut him off at once, without the slightest mercy. Seemed to know each other well. Swore up and down. That is your risk control standard as a high-end restaurant. I looked around, and pointed at the glittering crystal chandeliers overhead, and the expensive decorative art on the walls. Your restaurant spent hundreds of thousands, maybe over $1 million, on renovations. Everything is polished and luxurious. Yet, your core management system is worse than the corner food truck down the block. Even the lady there asks, before adding an egg. He's right. That's about $1,800,000. They just put it on his tab. This place's management is a complete mess. Who would dare eat here after this? What if they put it on my tab next time? The more you think about it, the scarier it gets. Manager Clark's expression finally cracked. Sir, stop making a scene here. You're seriously hurting our business. Let me tell you. This bill has been checked. There is no problem. If you don't settle this bill today, we have the right to hold you here and keep you from leaving. A threat. A naked threat. A naked threat. I was not scared. I laughed instead. I took out my phone, aimed it at his face, twisted with anger, and hit record. Fine. Say what you just said again. Say it to my phone camera, in front of all these customers. Clearly. One more time. Before the police arrive. Your restaurant plans to illegally detain me. Manager Clark's bluster vanished in an instant. His mouth opened and closed a few times, but he could not force out another word. 10 minutes later, red and blue police lights flashed wildly outside the restaurant entrance. 2 officers pushed through the doors. The older officer in front looked stern. The younger one beside him immediately raised his body camera. The moment the police appeared, the oppressive mood in the lobby broke apart. Every eye in the room snapped toward the entrance. Manager Clark, who had been throwing his weight around moments ago, pulled an instant about-face. His dark scowl flipped into frantic flattery. He half-jogged over to greet them. He bent so low, he was practically scraping the floor. Oh, officers, please. Thank you for your trouble. Sorry you had to come out in this heat. It's fine. Just a little misunderstanding. Purely a family matter. He shoved his bulky frame forward, trying to block the officer's view. He tried to pull them aside and settle it privately. Officer Walker had seen every trick in the book. Stone-faced, he stepped right around him, His sharp gaze locked on me as he came over. Hello? Are you the one who called 911? I am in front of the police. I laid out the whole story clearly from start to finish. No theatrics, no sob story, like a work report. I let the facts do all the talking. That is what happened. Here is the bill for about $8,300. And here is the note left by that fake uncle. I handed over the bill and that worthless scrap of paper together. Officer Walker took them at once. The younger officer immediately filmed the evidence up close with his body camera, pointing at the note. I threw out the obvious holes. Look. First, this paper has only one chicken scratch word. Frank. No full name, no phone number. Would a real relative treating us to dinner be this shady about it? Second, the note says, I agreed. Where is the proof? No recording, no screenshots, nothing. The restaurant dumped in about $8,000 bill on me, based on that one sentence. Who are you trying to fool? After hearing that, Officer Walker's eyes darkened, and he nodded. He stared hard at Manager Clark, whose face had gone ashen. The doubts this customer raised. How do you explain them? An about $8,000 bill, and you did not even make a phone call. You did not verify it with Mr. Miller in person? Manager Clark was instantly drenched in sweat. Cold sweat poured down his greasy, fat face. Officer. We only let our guard down because Mr. Lewis sounded so convincing. And the two of them seemed familiar. That is why we were not careful enough. His voice grew smaller as he spoke. Even he knew that pathetic excuse was flimsy. Just as both sides reached a standoff, the situation suddenly flipped. The young front desk clerk, already scared out of her mind, stumbled over, clutching a cordless phone. She held it like a ticking time bomb. Manager Clark. Phone call. It is for Mr. Miller. He says he is his uncle. Uncle. The second that word came out, the entire room went dead silent, starting with the two officers. Everyone stared straight at that phone. Inside, I let out a cold laugh. He had every chance to stay away, but he walked straight into the trap. The police had practically served the case on a platter, and this scammer still dared to hand me the win. He must have conned people so long he had started hallucinating. He really thought a slick mouth could twist the truth in broad daylight. A sharp glint flashed in Officer Walker's eyes. Without changing expression, he gave a look. Turn on the recording. The younger officer understood instantly. He adjusted the equipment at once. Officer Walker gave me a glance. Answer it. I took the trembling phone from the server's hands and put it on speaker in front of everyone. From the speaker came an intensely greasy male voice, fake warm and eager. It rang through the lobby. Hello? Is that Ethan? It's your Uncle Frank. His tone was so familiar, it made me sick. He acted like long-lost family had finally reached. Behind me, my mother shook her head in confusion. I don't know him. Beside her, my father went on full alert. His brows twisted into a tight knot. I gripped the phone, my voice cold as ice. I don't know you. On the other end, he quickly forced an awkward laugh to cover himself. Come on, you kid. You're a big shot with a short memory. How can you not know your uncle? When you were little, your Uncle Frank even held you at that little park downstairs from your place. Did you forget? His script was slick. Every line was a generic phrase that could fit anyone. He did not dare mention a specific place, but I was not buying it. I watched him coldly, letting him keep performing his little act. He thought I had taken the bait, so he started playing the elder. Ethan. Today you took your parents out to dinner to celebrate their wedding anniversary. Such a wonderful occasion. When your uncle heard about it, I was happy for you. So I figured my son is having his college celebration dinner today too. Double the good news. Right, we might as well celebrate together. We're all family. No need to split hairs. And there it was. The first wave of emotional blackmail. Family is family. Why talk like we're strangers? You've made something of yourself. Now, you're out there doing big business. Making real money. Would you really begrudge your uncle one meal? Listen to your uncle. A man should not forget where he came from. Your parents are both here today, in front of all these people. You're calling the police and making all this noise. Aren't you embarrassing your parents? You're making them lose face in front of the relatives. Every word stabbed right at a decent person's weak spot. He kept weaponizing family and public dignity to pressure me. He wanted me pinned down completely. After hearing that, my father could not hold back his anger. He snatched the phone. Who the hell are you? I'm warning you. Do not sit there talking nonsense. Do not smear my son's name. Our family has no relative like you. My father erupted on the spot. That protective parent mode instantly refilled my morale bar. I took the phone back. It was time for a comeback takedown. Mr. Lewis, right. Since you claim to be my uncle and a relative of my family, then this is simple. My tone was cold as ice. I cut straight to the point. I deliberately paused for 1 second, holding the whole room in suspense. Right now, in front of the officers. Tell me the names of my grandparents, on my dad's side. Or, my grandparents on my mom's side will do too, as long as you get even one right. This roughly $8,000 bill. I won't argue. I'll pay it immediately. The voice that had been yapping non-stop froze instantly. Through the speaker, the silence felt thick with embarrassment. No one at the scene even seemed to breathe. Manager Clark's face turned a nauseous shade of green. He looked like he had swallowed a live fly. After choking on silence for a few seconds, the scammer completely lost it. His disguise shattered on the spot. His composure cracked in his voice. The deadbeat underneath finally showed. You punk kid. What the hell is wrong with you? Is that any way to talk to an elder? You get a little schooling, and now you think you're somebody? I'm telling you. Don't push your luck. That bill, today, you are paying it, whether you like it or not. Otherwise, I'll make you regret it. In 1 second, the caring Uncle Act turned into gangster-style threats, so I hit a nerve. I let out a cold laugh. Respect is earned, not handed out. Which private room did you run up that bill in? Stop hiding behind the phone. The officers would like to discuss this family matter with you face to face. You wouldn't dare. He balked like a rabid dog on the other end. He spewed filth to cover his helpless rage. Then came a sharp click. He hung up and fled in panic. The lobby went dead, silent. Now, every rubbernecking onlooker understood. Their eyes were full of contempt. I put down the phone. My gaze locked onto Manager Clark, who looked scared stiff. Officer Walker's eyes were sharp as knives. His voice was chillingly cold. Manager Clark. Now, do you still think this is a family matter? Manager Clark's legs went weak, and he nearly dropped to his knees. He knew perfectly well. This mess had blown sky high. The officer looked ready to skin him alive. Immediately. Pull the footage from your restaurant lobby, the front desk, and every public camera you have. Now. His authority filled the room. He left no room for negotiation. The manager was scared out of his mind. He scrambled straight toward the surveillance room. His arrogance had been crushed to dust. Then Officer Walker turned to me, his tone softening. Mr. Miller. Please, think back for me. From the moment you came in, until you sat down. Did you notice anyone suspicious? My mind instantly replayed everything at full speed. My professional instincts kicked in. I am used to scanning everyone around me from head to toe. When we came in, we went straight to a window seat. The older man at the next table had acted extremely strange. He was around 50. He wore an oversized jacket. He looked tense from head to toe. His shifty eyes kept flicking toward us. While we talked, he kept leaning sideways, straining to listen. At the time, I thought he was just curious, so I did not pay much attention. Thinking about it now, he was probably the scammer. Officer Walker nodded. Do you remember what he looked like? A square-jawed face, darker complexion, a little receding at the hairline. Lots of wrinkles at the corners of his eyes when he smiled. He looked simple and harmless. That kind of non-threatening face is often the deadliest when it comes to fraud. The moment I finished speaking, Manager Clark came racing back with a technician carrying a laptop. His attitude had turned into instant groveling. Sweating hard, he tried desperately to look cooperative. Officer, we pulled it up. We pulled it up. It is all right here. That college celebration dinner that ran about $8,000. There should be registration information, right? Who registered it? What phone number did they leave? The manager smacked his forehead. Then he bolted back to the front desk like a mad dog to dig through the records. Soon he rushed back, clutching a reservation ledger. His shaking finger jabbed wildly at one page. Found it. The private room booked upstairs was the Rosewood Room in the VIP area. The registrant was Tyler Lewis. The phone number was the same one that had just called. The registered name was Frank Lewis. That was smoking gun proof. The clues formed a perfect, closed loop. The scammer had not run at all. He was hiding somewhere in this very building. Call for backup. Lock down the Rosewood Room. Secure everyone at the scene. The officer beside him moved with ruthless speed. He grabbed his radio, called in reinforcements, and sealed off the area. Right then, the surveillance footage came up. The video was crystal clear. We had just sat down. That middle-aged man in a dark jacket, Frank Lewis, stood up. He pretended to make a phone call. Then he paced back and forth by the next table. His ears were perked up the entire time. He kept edging closer to us. On the footage, I was taking out the anniversary gift I had prepared for Mom. It was a gleaming pearl necklace. I put it on her myself. My parents were smiling from ear to ear. Our family looked warm and happy. But Frank Lewis, standing only a few steps away, was staring hard at that necklace. His eyes practically lit up. You could see the calculations running through his head. Seeing that sent a chill straight down my back. So, From the moment we walked in, that old fox had already marked my family as prey. Then came footage that made my blood boil even harder. After dinner, we stood up and headed out. We ran right into Frank Lewis as he was heading for the front desk. On camera, he suddenly acted like he had been injected with adrenaline. He started bowing and scraping wildly at my parents. His mouth kept moving, as if he were offering congratulations. At the time, my parents just thought some drunk guest from another table had mistaken them for someone else. Out of politeness, they smiled and nodded back. Who could have imagined that one polite nod would become his so-called ironclad proof that he knew our family well? Seeing that scene, Mom shook all over with anger. A wave of fear hit her after the fact. Oh my God, how can someone be that evil? The next footage slammed the smoking gun proof right in our faces. Frank Lewis walked up to the front desk. He pulled out a shabby note he had prepared in advance and slapped it in front of the young server. He was lying through his teeth, while pointing at our backs as we walked away. The act looked painfully convincing. The server was completely taken in by his whole routine, and somehow, he actually accepted the note. The entire something for nothing scam had been caught on surveillance from start to finish. The truth was laid bare. Manager Clark stared at the laptop screen. His face had gone as gray as ash. He knew perfectly well the restaurant could not whitewash this one clean. He turned his head. His voice shook like he was begging for scraps. Mr. Miller, I am sorry. This was absolutely a major failure on our part. We were blind. Our management failed. So, could we maybe talk this over? Saying that now is too late. I want this handled strictly by the book. The moment I finished speaking, several backup officers rushed into the lobby. Officer Walker swept his hand forward. His eyes were razor sharp. He led his team straight to the elevator. Their target was upstairs. The Rosewood Room. This carefully planned chain of traps was about to crash and burn in the ugliest way possible. The real show was about to begin. Outside the Rosewood Room, two heavy mahogany doors were shut tight. The soundproofing was excellent. Outside the doors, the police stood there with lethal intensity. The tension was stretched to the breaking point. Inside the doors, the scammer's family was still toasting and drinking round after round. They were drinking like the party was in full swing. Officer Walker did not even bother knocking. He simply jerked his chin at the officers behind him. Two officers moved in, one on each side. Then they shoved the doors open hard. There was a thunderous bang. Both doors slammed viciously into the walls. The whole hallway rang from the impact. The noisy toasts inside were cut off in an instant. Everyone froze, stunned by the force of it. Around an enormous round table, more than 20 people were packed shoulder to shoulder. In the seat of honor, at the center, the balding man in the dark jacket was holding up a wine glass. His face was flushed red from drinking. He was bragging his head off, spit flying everywhere. That bastard was exactly the man from the footage. Frank Lewis, the scammer, rotten to the core. The moment he saw the police storming in, the wild grin on his face froze solid. The glass in his raised hand stopped dead in midair. Beside him sat a boy with a still childish face. That had to be his son, Tyler Lewis. He still had the proud look of an incoming college freshman. Now, he was scared, senseless. Officer Walker's knife-sharp stare pinned Frank Lewis in place. His voice boomed through the entire room like a bell. Frank Lewis, you are suspected of fraud. Come with us. Now. The second those words landed, the whole room erupted. Most of Frank Lewis's drunken haze vanished in sheer terror. He shot to his feet. He forced out a fake smile, uglier than crying. He waved his hands, desperately. Officer, sir. Oh, come on. This has to be a mistake. Fraud. What? Fraud? I was just joking with my own nephew. The brat does not know any better. Why would he actually call the police? His shifty eyes darted over the officer's shoulder. Then he spotted me behind them, my face cold as ice. He switched acts in a split second. He put on that disgusting, heartbroken elder act. Ethan, you silly kid. How can you be this reckless? Hurry up and explain it to the police. Why make a scene between family? Today is your cousin's college celebration dinner, and you pull something like this. Where does that leave your Uncle Frank's dignity? This old bastard's skill at blaming the victim was practically masterly. Every nosy relative at the table snapped out of their shock and started piling on. Exactly. It is such a tiny thing. Why call the police on your own family? Young people these days are so cold-blooded and heartless. An elder gives him an off-ramp, and he still refuses to take it. Young man, that is enough. Look how worried your uncle is. Stop causing distress for the adults in your family. The whole bunch buzzed around me like flies. They wanted to use numbers and social pressure to crush me. They were trying to twist the truth in broad daylight. Mom's soft heart wavered again. She quietly tugged at the corner of my shirt. Her eyes were full of pleading. She thought the scene had gotten too ugly and wanted me to back down. Dad saw through it at once. He reached out and firmly pressed down Mom's hand. Without a word, he stepped forward. He stood beside me like a mountain. That one gesture filled me with confidence instantly. Facing the spit-flying lectures of those confused old fools, I pushed through the crowd. I went straight up to Frank Lewis's face. I could not be bothered to waste words on him. I did not spare those relatives even half a glance. I simply pulled out my phone. I brought up the fresh call recording. Then I hit play without hesitation. You punk kid. What the hell is wrong with you? Is that any way to talk to an elder? I'm telling you. Do not push your luck. This bill, today, you are paying it, whether you like it or not. Otherwise, I will make you regret it. Frank Lewis's hysterical, filth-spewing roar blasted through the speaker for the whole room to hear. The Rosewood Room, which had been deafening moments ago, fell so silent you could hear a pin drop. Every voice backing him up was cut off. His friends and relatives all stared in shock. Their expressions were more ridiculous than the last. I turned off the recording. Then, I raised my head. My stare drove into Frank Lewis's eyes like a nail. My so-called good uncle. On the phone, just now. You did not sound like this at all. My voice was not loud, but every word hit like a sledgehammer, slamming down on Frank Lewis's skull. You could not even tell me my own grandparents' names. Not a single word. Frank Lewis's old face went through every shade of panic, from a showy, liver-red bluster, to the dead-fish white of being exposed in public, then to the blue-gray of utter humiliation, until finally he looked gray and limp as a rag. Beside him, his son, Tyler Lewis, had gone bright red in the face. Shame and anger shattered everything he thought he knew. He dropped his head, wishing he could sink straight through the floor. Officer Walker's icy voice came down hard. It put the final nail in this farce. Still making things up. Surveillance, footage, plus call recordings. That is ironclad evidence. He could not be bothered to hear another word. He waved to the officers behind him. There was a sharp click. A pair of shiny handcuffs, in front of his entire family, locked tight around the same hand that had just raised a glass. The sleazy hand he had just used to raise his glass and brag. Frank Lewis sagged like a beaten dog with no spine left. He was dragged out by the police, head hanging in defeat. The college celebration dinner, that had seemed so grand moments ago, instantly became a full-blown public humiliation scene. It turned into the joke of the entire room, just as he was about to be taken out the door. A middle-aged woman chased after us, wailing at the top of her lungs. She grabbed my arm and would not let go. Young man, please, show him mercy. Let him off this, once. This had to be Linda Lewis, Tyler Lewis's mother. Her face was streaked with snot and tears. Her hair was a wild mess. Her eyes were full of terror and pleading. He just had a stupid moment. He lost his head. He really is not a bad man. Frank Lewis had gambled himself rotten lately. He owed loan sharks a mountain of debt and was being chased all over town. He held this college celebration dinner, only to put on a show he could not afford. He wanted to act like a big shot in front of the relatives. Then he planned to find some sucker to cover the sky-high dinner bill. Quietly, without anyone noticing. He did it for the child too. What father does not want his son to look good? To head off to college, with honor and pride. He was desperate. That is why he came up with such a rotten idea. She cried like her heart had been torn apart. That speech was peak emotional blackmail. Every other sentence was for the child. As if that were a get-out-of-jail-free card. As if it could whitewash every rotten thing he did. My mother was soft-hearted by nature. Hearing the woman cry so miserably, and then hearing that line about the child, her bleeding heart's sympathy kicked in at once. Her lips moved, ready to plead for the scammer. I saw through it instantly. I quickly pressed a hand onto Mom's shoulder. I gave her a calming look to steady her. Then I turned and stared down, the hysterical woman still clinging to me. My voice was ice. The pressure was overwhelming. Ma'am, let me ask you one thing. If you want your son to save face, does that make it right to steal someone else's hard-earned money? If you want your son to look impressive, does that mean you can take my own parents, here for their anniversary today, and treat them like some giant sucker you can push around? Who pays for my parents' dignity, our emotional distress? Who is picking up that bill? Those few words cut like a chain of knives, each one fatal. They shredded her whole tragic mother act to pieces. She was so terrified she could not squeeze out a word. The hand gripping me loosened at once, like a deflated balloon. What a joke. On what grounds? On what grounds? Why is your precious little prince a treasure, while other people's parents are supposed to be trampled like weeds? Why does your family being broke make you right? Why should you get to bleed someone else dry of their hard-earned money? Just then, Tyler Lewis, the incoming college freshman who had kept his head down in silence, quietly stepped forward. He did not throw a tantrum like his mother. Instead, he walked straight up to me. His eyes were red. Then he bent into a deep, 90-degree bow. I'm sorry. Bro, I'm so sorry. This whole rotten mess is my father's fault. He dragged all of you into it. For this dinner bill, Even if I have to work back-breaking manual jobs. Even if I have to sell everything I own, I will pay you back. In that kid's eyes, there was none of his father's shifty-eyed scheming, none of his mother's shameless clinging either, only the shame of wanting to crawl into a crack in the floor, and a sense of responsibility forced up from his bones, looking at this half-grown boy, who was completely different from his deadbeat father, in every possible way. I felt a hard mix of emotions. At the end of the day, he was another victim ruined by his own father. What should have been a joyful day had been smeared by his father with filth he could not wash off. I watched him in silence for a few seconds. This is not your fault. But your father has to answer, legally, for the rotten things he did. As for this money, I will not pay a single cent. With the restaurant's management, and a crisis, this big exploding, they have to take full responsibility. The moment I said that, the mother and son froze on the spot. Manager Clark shuddered with fear. I could not be bothered with the sobbing pair beside me anymore. I walked straight up to Manager Clark. My mom and dad followed behind me, standing firm. I stared at his face, grim as a funeral. My tone dropped straight to freezing. Now, the man has been taken in. Manager Clark, it is time we settle this rotten $8,000 bill. And my family's emotional distress damages. Back in the first-floor lobby, the atmosphere was completely different from before. The rubbernecking onlookers had mostly cleared out. Only my family and the restaurant staff were left. Manager Clark's snobbish, look-down-on-people attitude had completely vanished. He followed behind me like a lackey, bowing and scraping. Mr. Miller, please, you have to calm down. About what happened today. Every bit of fault lies with the restaurant. Our management was full of holes. Our staff were blind. That is why your parents suffered such a terrible injustice. How about this? We will comp the few $100s your family spent today. Consider it our apology. As for that about $8,000 hole, you can rest, completely assured. The restaurant will cover it all. Not 1 cent of it will touch you. Does that resolution work for you? His eyes were full of probing caution. He looked at me eagerly, waiting for my answer. He wanted to settle it privately, with a comped meal, then quietly wipe out the bad debt himself. That was probably the last card he had left. It was also the best offer he could put on the table. If it had been an ordinary customer, they might have taken the easy off-ramp after a mess like this. After all, they lost no money and got a free meal. But I was not buying it. I picked up the teacup. Slowly, I blew at the loose tea leaves. I did not take a single sip. Then I set it down hard on the table. It landed with a sharp crack. I lifted my eyes and stared at him. Then I shook my head without the slightest courtesy. Manager Clark, are you missing the point here? If I eat, I pay. That is only fair. The few $100s my family actually spent, I will pay every cent of it. I did not come here begging for freebies. I came here to defend my rights. Second, that rotten about $8,000 bill has absolutely nothing to do with me. You were the ones blind enough to let the scammer in. That blame was always yours to carry. Using your own mess as a bargaining chip to buy my silence and make this go away. Do you not see how ridiculous that is? After those few lines hit him, his fake smile froze on his face. After all, his years as a manager, he had probably never met a troublemaker so immune to both pressure and sweet talk. I leaned forward. My gaze locked onto him. What we need to discuss now is not that about $8,000 at all. It is the compensation your restaurant owes me and my family. Compensation. That fat manager's eyes nearly popped out of his head. He looked like he had heard an alien language. You heard me right. Compensation. I broke it down for him, laying out the account in plain detail. First, today is my parents' 30th wedding anniversary. Because of the scammer you let in, my folks were scared half to death. A happy occasion got turned into a crime scene drama. That emotional distress compensation is coming out of your pocket. Second, I was called an ungrateful son right here in this lobby. Threatened over the phone by a scammer, and even personally threatened by you with being kept here. My dignity and personal safety were both violated. That emotional distress compensation, you will also pay. Third, cleaning up your massive mess wasted a huge amount of my time and energy, and even disrupted my later work schedule. That lost time compensation, you will pay as well. With every point I threw out, his face turned another shade paler. By the time I finished all three, he was bloodless, pale as a sheet of paper. I pulled a tablet from my bag, opened the legal provisions I had prepared while waiting for the police, and shoved it right under his nose. Read the consumer protection law carefully. Forced or coercive transactions are prohibited. Consumers have the right to personal and property safety, and to dignity free from violation. In this spectacular downfall, your restaurant failed to maintain even basic safety controls. And after it happened, you sided with the scammer, joining him in pressuring me. Put seriously, that is gross negligence. Put mildly, you were an accomplice to fraud. Staring at the law written right there in black and white on the screen, sweat poured down his forehead like someone had turned on a faucet. He never could have imagined that the polite-looking young man, in glasses, before him, not only had a mouth like a blade and a brutal way with numbers, but was also damn good with the law. I pressed the advantage while he was reeling. Then, I changed tack, driving the knife straight into his weakest spot. Manager, Clark. I work in venture capital. The moment I dropped those words, he gave a violent shudder. When we evaluate a project, we do not just look at how much money it can make. We care even more about risk control and brand reputation. For an upscale national restaurant chain like yours, how much is that good name worth? You know that even better than I do. If today's disaster gets exposed across the entire internet, a scammer targeting victims with precision, restaurant management proving completely incompetent, and a manager threatening customers, how badly do you think your brand reputation will shatter? How far will your parent company's stock price fall? The market value that evaporates could cover how many $8,000 bills like this? When this landmine goes off, can you really take the hit? For that last sentence, I deliberately slowed my voice. The damage landed at full force. Every word hit like a sledgehammer, swung hard and slammed straight into his chest. Under my methodical, professional level tape, his mental defenses collapsed with a crash. He did not dare waste another word. With his hands shaking like leaves, he pulled out his phone and frantically called for backup. Hello, Regional Director, Carter. Everything just blew up. His voice was a near-sobbing whimper of terror. My mom and dad stood beside me, watching the whole time as I outclassed him completely, turning a manager who had thrown his weight around into a beaten dog. The panic in my parents' eyes had long since vanished. All that remained was protective pride and deep relief. I knew perfectly well that in this hard-fought compensation battle, I had wiped the floor with the other side. An hour later, the phone in my pocket rang. It was Officer Walker, right there over the phone. He gave me the basics from the station's urgent interrogation. That fake uncle, Frank Lewis, had spilled absolutely everything, just as I had guessed. He was a slick career con artist and repeat offender. His real name was exactly Frank Lewis, a local lowlife with no real job, a rotten gambling addict, and owing tens of thousands to loan sharks. Before this, he'd used the same fake relative trick to freeload meals. He had pulled it off repeatedly in nearby towns. He had freeloaded plenty of meals worth dozens, sometimes a couple $100s. Every time, the victim saw the amount was not huge, felt too embarrassed to call the police, or genuinely thought they had mistaken a relative. So they swallowed the loss in silence, letting him grow fatter off the scam. That made him completely brazen. He had even developed a full scam playbook. During interrogation, he spilled the whole thing. His routine had 4 clear steps. It was practically a scam assembly line. Scout the place. Eavesdrop. Spring the family guilt trap. Step 1. Scouting. He specifically staked out upscale restaurants, casting a wide net for big targets. His victim profile was disturbingly precise. He picked people who looked well off, who had brought the whole family, with both elders and children present, sitting down to a warm, peaceful family dinner. Because old foxes like him knew perfectly well that families like that value, love, and public dignity, making them the juiciest marks. Step 2. Eavesdropping. Once the targets sat down, he moved to the next table. Then he listened hard, piecing together every scrap of information. Who was the grandfather? Who was the grandson? What they were celebrating? What jobs they had? He figured it all out. Those little details became his trump cards for pretending to be family later. Step 3. Making contact. After learning the basics, he waited until you went to the restroom or stepped away to pay, then forced a friendly approach with the elders in your family. He would toss out something like, "Hey sir, ma'am, long time no see," or randomly call out, "Congratulations, all the best." People are less likely to reject a friendly face. Even if a normal person did not know him, they would still nod politely. That one little nod became as perfect proof to the server that they knew each other. Step 4. The forced family pressure con. At checkout, he dumped the sky-high bill straight onto you. He leaned on that fake relative status and the lie that you had agreed, then forced the blame into your lap. Once exposed, he immediately bombarded you with manipulative calls. It was all, "You won't show me any respect. You ungrateful traitor who forgot where you came from," and other rotten insults. He played emotional blackmail like a pro, forcing you to pay just to make the problem go away. Officer Walker kept shaking his head over the phone. This targeted long con scam used family ties and public dignity as a blade. It went straight for honest people's weakest spot. It was evil on a whole new level. After hearing that whole combo, cold sweat broke out across my back. So, all along, from the second we stepped into that restaurant, my family had already been marked as his prey. The reason that bastard targeted us was even more chilling. He had seen me personally put that pearl necklace on my mother. In his filthy eyes, that screamed walking target with money to burn. Second, our family looked warm and happy together. My parents looked like decent, soft-hearted people at a glance. He saw right away that we cared about dignity, and bet we would swallow the loss to keep the peace. Once he overheard that we were celebrating a wedding anniversary, he became dead set on bleeding us dry. He believed the more a family valued love and loyalty, the easier women and children were to sway with the family card, until they were pressured into paying to end it. He had calculated every step to the last detail, even how he would stage that chance, not for my parents, had been rehearsed in his head hundreds of times. Every link fit into the next. Every step attacked the most fatal weakness in human nature. After hearing the inside story, I barely dared think it through. If I had backed down, even a little today, if I had listened to Mom, and agreed to settle it privately, if his righteous-sounding phone lecture had confused me, then this massive $8,000 trap would have landed squarely on my family. After Mom heard the case update, she was so scared. She kept patting her chest to breathe. My God. That is not just fraud. That is a monster who would bleed people dry. Dad stood beside her, his face dark. The more he thought about it, the more shaken he looked. After I ended the call, the fire in my chest did not die down. It burned even hotter. I turned around and took that fresh, explosive inside story, then repeated it, word for word, without emotion, to manager Clark, who was frantic with panic. I told him straight to his face. Frank Lewis was a seasoned local hustler. His methods were filthy, and my family had only become targets because this restaurant's security was full of holes, that we were served up as easy prey. These bombshells would be my strongest cards for hammering the restaurant next. Half an hour later, the restaurant's regional director finally dragged herself in. She was a woman in her 30s. She wore a designer-tailored suit, with flawless makeup, radiating polished corporate energy from head to toe. But beneath that manufactured aura, what showed through underneath was pure arrogance and contempt for everyone beneath her. Her last name was Carter. She was Regional Director Carter, the one manager Clark had called for help. She opened with a soulless, robotic apology, then got straight to the point. Acting like she was handing out charity, she tried to brush the whole thing under the rug. She slowly reached into her designer bag and pulled out a stack of flashy printed cards. Then she pushed them right under my nose. Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller, about what happened this time. Our branch truly failed to manage things properly. As an apology, please accept about $700 in-store vouchers. You can use them at any restaurant in our group. We hope your family will visit us often. Give us more chances to improve. That tone from on high was exactly like tossing scraps to beggars. About $700 in vouchers. Who was she trying to fool? Staring at that worthless stack of paper on the table, I laughed from sheer anger right there. My family had been scammed and threatened. We had been smeared in public. A perfectly good 30th anniversary had been turned into a total mess. And, after all that, their so-called apology was to force me to spend my own money at this rotten place that could not even protect our basic safety. The arrogance was off the charts. It was absurd, beyond belief. I did not even look at them. I pushed that worthless stack of vouchers right back untouched. I did not want to dirty my hands. My voice dropped very low, and every word had a blade in it. Ms. Carter, what you mean is, after my family suffered this much humiliation, we get zero actual compensation, and still have to spend our own money to pad your sales numbers. The mask-like fake smile on Regional Director Carter's face cracked in an instant. She never imagined that I would not take the bait, but would knock her pride flat in front of everyone. Mr. Miller, we have already settled that about $8,000 bill. We are eating that loss ourselves. Now we are showing this much sincerity on top of it, with you making such a scene. Aren't you pushing your luck a little? At last, she could not keep the act up. Her voice was full of irritation, and blame flipped back onto me. You call that covering an $8,000 bill? I shot to my feet, staring down at her coldly, my eyes full of contempt. That rotten bill had absolutely nothing to do with me. It was your own blind incompetence that caused this disaster. Isn't it only natural that you clean up your own mess? How did it come out of your mouth? Like you were doing me some divine favor. As for your so-called sincerity, I glanced coldly at that worthless stack of paper. Forgive me for being blunt, but all I see is evasion and naked insult. Regional Director Carter's face darkened with fury. She crossed her arms and leaned back in her chair. Her eyes were cold as a viper's. Then what do you want? Name your price, but I am warning you. Do not push your luck. Staring at that brazen, shameless face of hers, I completely gave up on reasoning with human garbage like her. I gave a cold laugh. I picked up my bag and gathered my parents' belongings. What do I want? You will find out soon enough. After dropping that threat, I did not spare them another glance. I took my folks straight to the front desk. Under those two idiots' ghost-struck stares, I pulled out my card and paid our own bill. About $280. Cleanly and in full. Then, I tore off the receipt and stormed out of that disgusting restaurant without looking back. Once we got home, I settled my shaken parents down. Then I opened my laptop and got straight to work. Late into the night, the room held nothing but the rapid-fire strikes of my keyboard. I laid out the massive trap we had stepped into that afternoon, exactly as it happened. I did not leave out so much as a comma from the bogus about $8,300 bill they tried to force on us, to that fat manager's threats and intimidation, from that world-class deadbeat's manipulative phone barrage, to the police arriving like justice from above and making the arrest, plus the office's explanation of the targeted Long Con routine, and Regional Director Carter's vile big shot act with those worthless $700 vouchers. Every detail, every exchange, I recreated it one for one, hard and exact. Every receipt hit where it hurt. Then I released the deadly smoking gun proof, the video of the manager threatening to detain me, the recording of the scammer losing it, and that redacted sky-high bill. All became bombshell receipts. And I dropped them online, one by one. At the end of the post, I typed a nuclear-level headline that could blow up the whole city. Local warning. Avoid this place. At an upscale restaurant charging over $100 per person for my parents' anniversary dinner, a stranger tried to shove in about $8,000 bill onto us. Regional director tossed me about $700 in vouchers to shut me up. After checking it over, I clicked the mouse. Then I pushed it out across the internet. The biggest local forum, restaurant review platforms, and my personal social media account. I hit all 3 channels at once. A full platform blast. Send. Confirmed. I knew perfectly well that the real comeback had only just begun. The explosive power of the internet was fiercer than I ever imagined. Less than an hour after the post went up, my phone notifications went insane. They kept ringing non-stop. The comments, shares, and likes surged upward like crazy. Holy shit. About 8,000. Has this dump gone insane for money? That con artist's trick is disgusting as hell. He specifically targets happy families. That is pure psycho behavior. The poster stayed calm under pressure. Calling 911, recording the call, and tearing the manager apart was one smooth combo. Absolutely badass. A total intelligence mismatch. Cheering him on like crazy. About $700 in vouchers. Ha ha ha. I am dying. Is this restaurant's PR department? Brain. At first, the rubbernecking onlookers were only chasing the scammer down in the comments, standing up for my family. But very soon, public opinion took off like a rocket. My hard-hitting was like a depth charge, blasting all the rot beneath that restaurant into the open. The comments section instantly spiraled out of control. It became an internet-wide venting session against that shady restaurant. Finally, someone tore the mask off this scammy place. Last time, our reserved room for a company team-building dinner got taken out from under us. The manager played dead and did not dare say a word. I once walked into their kitchen by mistake. What I saw was beyond description. Even a dog would have thrown up. Lifelong hater now. Their service attitude is absolute trash. Every server walks around with a dead-eyed face. They act arrogant as hell. Where do they get the nerve to act like big shots? I found a piece of steel wool in my food. When I demanded an explanation, they only comped one dish in the end, like they were tossing scraps to a beggar. Countless victims burned by this place, all rallied together under my post, piling on with their horror stories. Each raw, first-hand account ripped apart the so-called high-end image the stump had used as its fig leaf. It exposed the rotten hypocrisy underneath. The moment I opened my eyes, the next morning, I grabbed my phone and checked. The whole thing had blown up sky-high. It was firmly sitting at number 1 on local trends. Sky-high restaurant bill? New kind of family pressure con. About $700 in vouchers. Those tags were burning red hot. Each one was stamped with a glaring explosive tag. My account gained tens of thousands of followers overnight. My direct messages completely froze. They were packed with support from strangers online, plus tons of old dirt on the restaurant. Reporters from every major local outlet and TV station came after me like sharks, smelling blood, fighting to land an exclusive interview. The wildest part was this. The City Consumer Protection Agency's verified account dropped straight into the comments. They announced they had received a flood of real name reports. They were forming a special task force immediately to open a formal case and go after this dump hard. The fire had officially reached the financial markets. The butterfly had only just flapped its wings, and a monster hurricane strong enough to uproot this restaurant giant was already roaring right up to its door. That same morning, the moment the stock market opened, the restaurant group's publicly traded parent company saw its stock price nosedive into a full crash. Within half an hour of opening, it plunged 5%. Hundreds of millions in market value evaporated instantly. The PR hotline at corporate headquarters was probably smoking from all the angry calls. Everything was collapsing across the board. The entire group was in frantic damage control mode. I sneered inwardly. That arrogant regional director Carter had thought about $700 could buy my silence. By now, she was probably wishing the floor would swallow her whole. That afternoon, an unknown number slipped onto my phone. The second I answered, a painfully submissive voice came through from the other end, even trembling with a trace of fear. Hello. Is this Mr. Miller? I am the head of public relations for the restaurant group. My name is Wilson. Mr. Miller? For the brain-dead stupidity of our local employees, we offer our deepest apologies to your entire family. This was absolutely a catastrophic failure of our management. We accept full responsibility and any penalty. Mr. Miller, may I ask when you might be available? Our group chairman would like to come in person and apologize to your parents. Listening to that pleading voice, almost on the verge of tears, I felt nothing inside. I even wanted to laugh. This ending had been in my calculations from the start. Take one step back, and the corporate machine's teeth will tear you apart. Only when you drive the knife straight into the stock price and brand reputation it cares about most will it finally come crawling. You pick the time and place. However, let me be clear up front. I will be bringing my lawyer. I knew the huge emotional distress settlement I demanded was finally about to land in my hands. We moved the negotiation table straight to the MP lounge at a 5-star hotel. No way was I going back to their own toxic dump. I brought my parents, along with my close friend, a high-powered commercial litigation attorney, and arrived right on time. The restaurant group chairman showed up. He was in his early 50s, with graying hair, wearing an understated jacket, and he actually looked fairly polished. Trailing right behind him was PR Director Wilson, the same man who had called to beg for mercy. As for that fat manager and that arrogant regional director Carter, they had probably already been served up as sacrificial lambs. The moment we stepped inside, the chairman sprang to his feet and hurried over in quick little steps. Not one word wasted. He went straight to my parents, then dropped into a perfect 90-degree bow. Sir, ma'am, I am deeply sorry. This happened because our management was rotten to the core. We let those idiots underneath us ruin such an important day for you both, and put you through so much distress. On behalf of the entire group, I offer you both our sincerest apology. That attitude left no room to nit. That was peak damage control sincerity. My mom and dad are honest, simple people. They had never seen anything like this. A chairman of a major group was bending at the waist to bow to them. My parents were so startled they did not know where to put their hands. I reached out and steadied my mother. My gaze did not waver once. I accepted his apology calmly and firmly. An apology is only an attitude. If they wanted to make this go away, they had to put real money on the table. As soon as we sat down, the chairman skipped the pleasantries entirely. He slapped down an official corporate document. That fat manager, Clark Johnson, along with his backer, Emily Carter, had already been shown the door on the spot. Mr. Miller, no amount of money can erase your family's emotional distress. But we take full responsibility. We have to show you real sincerity. He gave Director Wilson beside him a look. A thick contract was pushed onto the table. My lawyer buddy took it at once. His eyes started scanning it like radar. First, every dollar your family spent this time, including legal fees and lost time compensation, anything even remotely connected to this, will be fully reimbursed by the group. Second, the group will set aside about $14,000 in cash as emotional distress compensation for your parents' shock. Third, and this is the strongest move, we will put about $28,000 directly into an anti-fraud victim assistance fund. It will all be listed under your name, Mr. Miller, specifically to help victims who have been scammed. Honestly, when that whole combo landed, it genuinely exceeded the number I had in mind, especially donating money to charity in my name. These corporate players really did think fast. It was the gold standard in crisis PR. They wanted to scrub this scandal into a brand win. But that still wasn't enough. I still had a bigger ticking time bomb on my mind. The money is right on target. But what I want to know is this. How are you going to fix this rotten mess at the source? If today had been someone easier to bully, they would have been chewed up and spit out by now, wouldn't they? The chairman's face darkened. He nodded with solemn seriousness. Then he reached into his bag and pulled out another official corporate document. This is a non-negotiable order. Drafted overnight, it specifically closes the loopholes around large Hively bills. Starting next Monday, every location nationwide locks in the new rule. For any bill over about $400, the customer must verify by phone-based face scan and signature. Not a single step can be skipped. If anyone quietly transfers charges to another customer's tab again, even by 1 cent, the manager involved gets fired on the spot, and that location covers the loss itself. We truly have to thank you, Mr. Miller. You were the tough customer who forced us to clean out every festering problem in our group. You diffused a fatal landmine for the entire company. The older man straightened up again, then gave me a proper, respectful bow. Watching the show reach this point, I knew exactly where things stood. The game was over. The disgusting ones lost their jobs. The ones who caused the trouble bled for it. And I had forced this broken industry's loophole shut in the process. My lawyer buddy gave me an okay sign. Only then, with a cold expression, did I accept that massive apology settlement on my parents' behalf. A few days later, The police department's official bulletin took over every screen. Frank Lewis, that lying scammer, was sent behind bars. He definitely would not be out for years. That hard-hitting anti-crime segment on television also struck while the iron was hot and aired in prime time. This segment put my textbook comeback takedown front and center. At the same time, it gave the whole city a hard public self-defense lesson against scams. As for me, personally, I did not show so much as a strand of hair. Online, all that remained was the legend of the mysterious, badass Mr. Miller. This absurd, high-priced farce had finally been brought to a clean, satisfying close. One afternoon, Officer Walker suddenly patched through a mysterious private line. The voice that came through the receiver was Tyler Lewis, the son of that deadbeat scammer. The kid's voice was so hoarse, it sounded like he had swallowed razors. Even through the phone, I could feel how exhausted and broken he was. Bro, I'm sorry. I know I'm bothering you again. I watched the television segment. The case is closed too. My dad went behind bars. He deserved it. The money, the restaurant paid, and that donation. I heard about all of it. Thank you for not pushing my mom and me, left with no one to rely on, to the brink. These past few days, I picked up a part-time job. I have been carrying plates and washing dishes in a kitchen. It is not much money. Tyler Lewis, you still have a long road ahead. Do not carry the sins your father committed on your own back. Do not let his rotten mess ruin your whole life. Stand tall and be your own man. Study like your life depends on it. Live with integrity. Do not pick up a single one of his filthy habits. That is the strongest comeback you can give. The other end went silent at once. After a long while, I finally heard the faint edge of a sob. He was desperately choking back. With that $14,000 settlement money in my hands, I did not drag my feet. I immediately handled two major things. First, I spent big on a top private dining room at an upscale chef's table restaurant. I redid the celebration for my parents. A quiet, proper 30th anniversary dinner. No messy drama, queens around. No snobbish eyes, sizing people up. Just the three of us behind closed doors, enjoying the most peaceful meal we'd had in ages. At the table, my father, usually a man of few words, took the rare initiative to raise his wine glass. The corners of his eyes were red. He looked straight at me. His own son. I used to think that no matter how well you did out there, you was still a punk kid who had not grown up. I was always afraid the world would eat you alive out there alone. After this disaster, I finally understood. You, Brett, you have been fully leveled up for a long time. Now you can shield the whole family when it counts. Your old man respects you from the bottom of his heart. Beside him, Mom could not hold it together at all. Her tears came spilling down, drop after drop. Thank goodness this little rascal is sharp. Otherwise, with these old bones of ours, we'd have been fleeced and still thanked the scammer for it. The three of us looked at each other's silly faces and burst into laughter at once. All the frustration and anger we had been holding evaporated completely over that table of good food. After surviving that whole ordeal, our whole family's morale bar refilled. The second thing, with the money I had left, I booked the whole trip my parents had been dreaming about for years. A luxury 7-day trip to Hawaii. Flights, hotels, itinerary planning. I arranged the full, end-to-end, VIP package. In the airport terminal, I watched my parents act like two curious kids, studying their boarding passes for ages. They even kept taking selfies with the planes beyond the windows. That sense of achievement felt better than winning the lottery. I had protected my own parents, with my own strength, and fulfilled their dream while I was at it. Damn, that hit harder than closing a multi-million-dollar financing deal. Right before takeoff, my account dashboard pinged. It was a formal thank you letter from the restaurant's official corporate account. It was packed with total respect and apologies. They thanked me for single-handedly forcing their group's disaster-riddled operation back to life. The comments section underneath exploded even harder. The screen was full of over-the-top praise. Now that is the ultimate professional level a textbook, last-second comeback takedown. All hail the boss. We are not worthy. A soft heart needs a steel spine. Crush those deadbeats. So satisfying to watch. He cleaned up the whole restaurant industry single-handedly. Bro, you're the spark, the light, the whole legend. Curled up in first class on the flight to Honolulu, I watched vast seas of clouds drift past the window. My heart was strangely calm. This bogus $8,000 bill dumped on me out of nowhere had been like a brutal stress test. It pressure tested every card I had. The satisfying part was, I absolutely crushed that exam with a god-tier critical hit score.